Throughout the history of America and many conflicts, the government of the United States has attempted to persuade American citizens to support these conflicts. A major way that they achieve this is through the use of political cartoons. Between the years of 1754 and 1945, tens of thousands of these political cartoons have been made, and have even become somewhat of a tradition that lasts to this day. You can see this in some of the political cartoons that have been made over the last few years. This tradition in American society can be traced back all the way to the French and Indian War, when Benjamin Franklin published a Join or Die political cartoon. This cartoon was used to drum up support for the French and Indian War, and more importantly, show the dysfunction and disunity of the colonies and how this brought problems to the effectiveness of the colonies' armies. The War of 1812 also had plenty of propaganda, such as the Huzzah for Freedom political cartoon, which was first printed in 1813. The cartoon was very pro-American, even saying, quote, "A boxing match or another bloody nose for John Bull." John Bull being a national representation for Britain, basically a British version of Uncle Sam. The cartoon also helped drum up support for the war and showed the animosity that Americans felt for Britain at the time. During the American Civil War, there were many instances of propaganda, such as the Patriots, your country needs you, which was a recruiting notice to try and get people to join the military, more specifically the Indiana Snake Killers Regiment from Indiana. This notice and others like it were generally pretty successful, and were able to get tens of thousands of soldiers to join the Union Army. During World War I, many famous pieces of American propaganda were first made. The most famous would of course be the "I Want You for the U.S. Army" from the 1916 issue of Leslie's Weekly magazine. This piece was used to try and get people to join the U.S. Army and to stir up American patriotism and nationalism. This had the effect of getting more people to support an American intervention into World War I. Before World War I, most of America's optics were imported from Germany and Austria. And once America became embroiled in war with these two nations, America had to find a way to get binoculars and other such items without trading with their enemies. To fix this, the United States government decided to ask the American public if they would lend such items to the government to better equip their troops and navies with binoculars, glasses, spy glasses, and other such optics. To market this, they released posters such as this one to the American public, and was very successful, being able to supply their troops long enough for the war to be over. After the war, all of these items were given back to the original owners along with a small sum of money. America during the First World War needed money, so they decided to begin the Third Liberty Bond program. To promote this, the United States released many cartoons and posters to try and get people to purchase Liberty Bonds. Many of these posters, such as this one, which villainized the Kaiser of Germany as an aristocrat and as an enemy, were used to get people to buy bonds. It was quite successful and raised quite a lot of money for the war effort, but it also spread an anti-German sentiment throughout the USA, which led to violence against Germans. Fast forward to World War II and America's entry into the war, there is much anti-German and more specifically anti-Nazi propaganda created in the US. One such example is this piece released in 1942 by Kelly Reed and Co. Pieces like these were designed to incite fear in Americans that the Germans would destroy America and her ideals. Along with this piece, published by the same company in 1943, it is easy to tell how Americans were afraid that the US and Americans would lose their freedoms. During World War II, women couldn't join the military, but even so, many women wanted to help their country. The government, realizing this, decided to target these patriotic women to get them to join the war effort in other ways, such as becoming a nurse like what is shown in this piece of propaganda. Just as important to the war effort as the soldiers were the factory workers, who were the lifeblood of the war effort. Without factory workers, the soldiers didn't have uniforms to fight in or guns to fight with. And if the morale of the workers were too low and their efficiency in production wavered, it could be disastrous for the war economy and to the war effort as a whole. To mitigate this problem, posters such as these were posted in newspapers and factories to keep morale high and to keep production moving forward. And it was primarily successful. Just like in World War I, anti-German sentiment in World War II was incredibly high, and fear and paranoia that the Germans would destroy America and her institutions was running rampant. To use this paranoia to do good, the United States posted propaganda such as this, which was meant to increase awareness of enemy spies and saboteurs. This initiative was incredibly successful, and German spies were generally caught easily comparatively, and they are often outed by civilians. Throughout the history of America, the United States and her citizens have used posters and pro-war propaganda to rile up the masses and to gain support in the nation's many wars. These were just a few examples of the many thousands of posters that have been used to inform the people during peacetime. Let's all hope that propaganda such as these won't be needed again.